Hello everyone, hope you're doing alright, hope you're keeping safe and I hope you're keeping sane. Now today's video, I want to talk about the top 5 reasons that I believe you should quit gambling. And basically this is based on my experience of being in recovery and of being abstinent from gambling for quite a period of time, and the top 5 benefits that I've come to realise I was being basically denied whilst I was still gambling. So without further ado, let's hit number 5. Now number 5 is your sleep. Now, sleep is something that gamblers struggle with for 2 primary reasons. Firstly, a lot of the time that we should be asleep is the time that we end up gambling. And particularly for those of us in relationships or with families or who live with partners or even with their parents, time in the evening, time after everyone else has gone to bed, is quite often our opportunity to indulge in some gambling. Also, when you are gambling, particularly when you're gambling online and in an isolated way, time becomes much less of a factor. I'm sure we've all experienced that feeling where you think an hour's elapsed and actually the sun started coming up. So gambling really in that way can seriously impact on our sleep patterns because we have these urges and because we want to indulge them. We find ourselves waiting till some ridiculous hour before we can actually get our fix. And then God knows only how long that's actually going to go on for. Now, the second reason that gambling affects your sleep is, of course, because of, firstly, the endorphins and the dopamine, but also just because of the psychology of gambling. We lay awake thinking about our most recent loss. We lay awake berating ourselves for maybe a gambling session that we couldn't afford or that we certainly shouldn't have partaken in. We lay awake sometimes thinking about future gambling sessions, and quite often in the worst of times of addiction, you're lying awake thinking about how to get the money back that you just lost, or thinking when you can next gamble to try and win those losses back. Gambling will also wake you up early in the morning in the same way that drinking might do. It does affect your sleep pattern very substantially, and you'll often find yourself being quite sleep deprived as a result of a gambling addiction. Number 4. Once you quit gambling, you find you have substantial periods of time to do other things. Now, this actually, in the short term, can be a bit of an enemy of the recovery. The reason being is because quite often when we had spare time as gamblers, we would fill that time with gambling. So in the short term, we've got to find something to occupy that time. This is when we talk about the triangle of basic addiction and the triangle of recovery. Time is very much one of the factors along with money and opportunity. Time is something that is very finite, and so it's something that's important that we basically get back from this addiction. However, like I say, in the short term, finding other positive, productive things to fill this time can be a bit challenging. In the longer term, however, once you do manage to regain this extra time in your life from the grips of a gambling addiction, you'll find you have so many more opportunities, so much more potential to do other things, be these productive things in work, in business, or just other leisure activities, spending time with friends, family, going to the gym, doing whatever. You'll find you have significantly more time to partake in these other activities, along with the additional time, as per number 5, to sleep, to recoup, and to look after yourself physically. Number 3. I've spoken about this many times, and I even made a separate little, short film, if you want to call it that, about that feeling. And if you are a gambler, particularly if you are a problem gambler or someone who has a tendency to gamble more than they can realistically afford or more than they should be, we all know that feeling. And that feeling is the feeling that strikes you typically 10-15 seconds after you wake up in the morning. And it's a feeling of being punched in the stomach. It's that dawn of realisation. It's that sudden moment of clarity when you realise and you remember what you did the night before. And that feeling is nearly always cemented by a quick check on your bank statement on your phone or something like that, when you realise that, yep, it wasn't a bad dream. You really were awake till 3-4 in the morning, gambling online, and you've lost your month's wages or whatever. Or it may have been something that happened previously in the day before, but you wake up and you remember what happened the day before, what happened the night before, and you get that gut-wrenching, winded feeling that you've done it again. And you'll lay awake and you'll berate yourself and you'll tell yourself that you're never going to do it again, and then you'll do it again and again and again. And the cycle continues until obviously you make the positive steps required to actually get into some form of successful gambling recovery. But yes, once you've been gamble free for any period of time, you will lose that feeling. And that itself has to be worth abstinence, I promise you. Not waking up with that gut-wrenching feeling. Waking up and looking at your phone and realising, look, there's as much money in my bank account as there was when I should have gone to bed last night. Number two, this actually leads me on to number two quite nicely, and I'm talking about stability. You'll notice so far that I haven't spoken much about the financial side of gambling recovery. And the reason I don't talk about that so much in this video, and particularly as a positive, is because it's not one of the elements that improves overnight. You know, if you're a gambling addict, or you've been a gambling addict for any period of time, the chances are you may have debt, or you may certainly be in a less than preferable financial situation. Now, if you quit gambling today, tomorrow, whenever, okay, do it today, don't do it tomorrow, but if you quit gambling today, you'll wake up tomorrow and your financial circumstances are unlikely to be significantly better. You're not going to suddenly be rich, and you'll probably still have the same debt that you had hanging over your head the day before. It will, of course, recover in time, and this is the importance of stability. You get two types of stability when you quit gambling, and we'll talk about financial stability first. And like I say, that is the feeling that you wake up in the morning and there's still the money in your bank account, however small that amount might be, that was there the day before. You have the stability of knowing that bills are going to be paid. You know the stability, eventually have the stability once you've taken the steps to address your debts, that they're being paid. You're not going to have the letters coming through the post, people calling you, people chasing you for money. You know that you're not going to have to scrabble about to try and find some money to see you through the last couple of weeks of the month. Because although there might not be lots left over, lots spare, a lot of disposable income, you know there's enough there that's accounted for that you will be able to live without that constant ongoing stress and the peaks and troughs of the finances of a gambler. That is something that also helps you sleep better. And as you can see, a lot of these elements do tie in. But financial stability was certainly up there with the best reasons to quit gambling. Like I say, you're not going to be rich. You're not going to be rich overnight. Maybe if you use that spare time we've talked about to work overtime, get an extra job, build a business, do something financially constructive, then maybe in time you will get rich. You certainly won't get rich while you're gambling. But you will get stability and you'll get peace of mind, and that is worth its weight in gold. Give me peace of mind and stability and being comfortable over peaks and troughs and massive wins and massive losses any day of the week. It helps your mental health, it helps your physical health, like I say, it helps your sleep pattern, and it helps your emotions, and it helps your relationships because of that, because you don't have those highs and lows. And that comes on to the other type of stability that you gain when you quit gambling, and that is the emotional stability. Gambling addiction is particularly dangerous because of its secrecy, because it's something that you are able to keep a secret from those around you, from those you live with, from your loved ones, from your family, from your partner, whatever. It's something that we can keep internalized with very few outward symptoms. The problem with this, of course, and the problem with gamblers being secretive, is that we then have a tendency to naturally internalize all our emotions. We have to keep all our emotions to ourselves in order that the facade we have, or the facade we put up to those around us, doesn't slip, and we don't expose our addiction, we don't expose our habit. And the problem with, of course, internalizing emotion is that it will have substantial impacts on your mental well-being, on your mental health. You're not able to open up in the same way as if a normal non-gambling person, someone who doesn't have a problem with gambling, could speak to your loved ones about your problems. You know, if you have stresses at work, if you have day-to-day stresses, if you have problems in your life, you can open up and you can talk to the people around you. You can talk to your support group, and you can externalize your emotions, and actually you can get support for those. Because we're secretive, because we don't want people to know about our habit, we have to internalize these emotions, which creates great peaks and troughs, great emotional turmoil, particularly if we're already susceptible to things like anxiety and depression. We get these great, these great peaks, these great troughs of emotion, which we then both ends have to hide from those around us, which will over time cause significant mental health issues. So that stability is very, very important, and is one of the fantastic side effects of quitting gambling. And that brings me on massively to number one. And that is the dawn of realization once you quit gambling that life is, in fact, incredibly dull. Life is, by and large, quite dull. I don't mean life in general. Life has some fantastic, potential fantastic experiences. What you do come to realise, however, is that substantial proportions of your day and your day-to-day life are inherently dull. Getting up, going to work, having a shower, having a shave, doing the washing up, cooking your dinner, all a bit dull. But you learn to live with that, and actually you learn to then embrace and enjoy some of the smaller highs that life has to offer. Going for a walk, going to the gym, doing all of these sorts of things. Whilst you're gambling, of course, you are experiencing those highs and lows of emotion. You're also experiencing the dopamine hits that gambling gives to you. And what that does is inherently rob you of the pleasure you may get from simpler but slower moving forms of entertainment. You could sit there and consider sitting down reading a book. You could think about going out for a walk. You could think about maybe going to the gym. You could think about, I don't know, sitting there, if you're someone like me, sitting there and researching some Chinese wholesaler websites to try and find some new products to sell online. All these sorts of things. That's a bit specific to me, but I'm sure lots of people have these ideas and things they'd like to do. But what gets in the way, of course, is gambling. Because while sitting down and reading a book may be, in the long term, quite beneficial for your mental health, and you may actually get quite involved and get something out of that experience, it's much, much easier to bung 50 quid in an online casino and spin on some slots. You get that instant hit, that instant satisfaction, that instant gratification, without any of the need to really commit to something that takes a bit of work. Of course, the outcome of this is there's no long-term benefits. In fact, there's no real benefits at all. And the negatives that are likely to come off the back of that short-term boost, that short-term entertainment, are likely to substantially outweigh the positives you get from it. However, in the short term, this feels like an instant, quick solution to the problem of boredom. And once we realise that inherently life can be quite boring at times, we can learn to fill our time in different ways and do things that are long-term productive. Sitting down on the sofa with your partner or whatever and watching a bit of TV or watching a film, yes, it's much slower moving, it doesn't give you that instant satisfaction, but you'll get out to the other end of that and you'll have had a nice evening, you'll have built your relationships, and you won't have caused yourself any financial or any other form of harm, which you may do by just scratching that boredom itch with a bit of gambling. That is the one thing that I've really learnt from, the one thing I've really benefited from. It's the one reason why you're getting so many more videos from me now, because sitting down, recording a video, editing it, if I can be bothered, most of these are one-cut jobs, as you know, but sitting down, recording a video, uploading it, making the thumbnail and stuff is a reasonably longish process. If I wanted to get something instantly back, then it'd be much easier to go online and have a punt. But I get something then positive, long-term back from this, because I get the comments, I get the, all the lovely things that people sort of say and send to me. I go out for a walk instead of gambling now, and I'll go and do 10, 15 Ks of walking. It might take me a couple of hours or whatever, but I'll do that. I'll come back, I've got some fresh air, a bit of clarity in my head. Obviously, it's a bit of good for my health as well. And it's not as exciting, but it's something that I don't have to feel ashamed of. It's something that has done something productive. And maybe I'll sit down on eBay and do a load of listings. I don't know. Like I say, the recognition, the acknowledgement, and the understanding that a lot of life is a bit tedious takes away from that need to instantly get a buzz, to get that instant hit of dopamine. And although you won't totally understand what I'm saying unless you've experienced it yourself, or until you experience it yourself, trust me, it has earned its right at my virtual #1 spot of reasons to quit gambling. Life is great. Dull in many parts, but great. But you won't experience the greatness until you understand the dullness. And you won't understand the dullness while you're still self-medicating with quick fixes of dopamine and quick fixes of excitement and endorphins that gambling provides, but ultimately will take away from you in the long term. Cheers for watching, guys. I'm going to make a video very soon about the downsides of quitting gambling, and there are some. So if you thought this video was interesting, like, subscribe, notification bell, all that sort of lovely stuff. And thanks for watching, and I'll look forward to catching you on the next one. See you soon.